Good morning, everybody. This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio, Sinoland, Shenzhen, just south of the Tropic of Cancer. Have a really interesting analysis about Western media and propaganda today, entitled Successfully Smearing China with Big Lie Propaganda About, quote, Muslim Gulags, end of quote. MSM digs up a stale Psyops, quote, organ harvesting. And the picture up top, pictured above, every weekend in Hong Kong, Falun Gong and Anti-Falun Gong supporters put up stands and hand out flyers. They will both usually be side by side in frequent heavy foot traffic zones outside bigger metro stations and pedestrian overpasses and walkways. The poster up top shows Falun Gong leading brainwashed masses over a cliff with a banner that reads, Falun Gong's evil teaching. The bottom one shows a convert handing over his heart, gold, and legal papers to Li Hongzhi, the Falun Gong's founder, while calling him the devil. Before starting, I would like to thank Charles Liu at Hidden Harmonies blog. Most of the material in this article / podcast came from his fine research and writing. Check out his blog. He's a really good journalist. This week, the CIA / MI6 publications, The Guardian and Wall Street Journal, came out simultaneously with very similar articles, rehashing a tall tale that has been lurking around mainstream media for 12 years, the supposed organ harvesting in China. The culprits are still the same. For background, the well-known CIA front organization Falun Gong, abbreviated FLG, has a long sordid history of working overtime to destabilize the Chinese People's Communist Socialist way of life. I wrote about this gang of saboteurs in the China Trilogy. Another celebrated CIA front, the National Endowment for Democracy, NED, is also involved through the evil offices of neocon ambassador Mark Palmer until he died in 2013. He's the guy who co-wrote Ronald Reagan's famous 1982, quote, Marxism is heading towards the ash heap of history, end of quote, speech. Tell that to 1.4 billion Chinese. Not. Every Western anti-communist, anti-socialist propaganda campaign needs a bought and paid for politician or two to lend it, quote, credibility. In the case of the FLG, that would be U.S. Congressman Tom Lantos's wife, Annette, who, with Mark Palmer, founded the Friends of Falun Gong front group. NED has given millions to this shell operation. As far back as 2006, the U.S. government knew this organ harvesting slander was a big lie. In an embassy report released by WikiLeaks, the American embassy even pulled off a surprise visit to the place the FLG claimed was killing thousands of its followers, Muslims and Uyghurs, supposedly cutting out all their organs and then cremating their remains. FLG was screaming to the world that it was a Chinese Auschwitz on an industrial scale. Yet the Department of State report, quote, found no evidence that the site being used for any function other than as a normal public hospital. Amnesty International spokespersons have stated that the claims of systematic organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners cannot be confirmed or denied. In other words, it was not true then and is still not today. But for the big lie propaganda machine, the BLPM, truth goes out the window in the West's pathological zealotry to discredit any country that is not a resource whore for Fortune 500 / Wall Street capitalism, including China. So the big lie must be kept alive. Right before the U.S. State Department confirmed it was a hoax, two reliable imperial whores, Canadians David Kilgour, a member of parliament, and David Mattis, a, quote, human rights, end of quote, attorney, published a report that was probably given to them by CIA / FLG. It is cited in the same WikiLeaks release above. In 2008, Charles Liu from Hidden Harmonies, who provided me with most of the research information used in this article slash podcast, wrote an open letter to these two colonial cuckolds, citing overwhelming evidence that this story was a hoax and asking them to retract their bogus claims. Of course they didn't. Are you kidding? It has nothing to do with the truth and everything to do with BLPM hating communism, socialism, and anti-imperialism. Just ask Venezuela, Cuba, North Korea, Iran, Iraq, Russia, Libya, Syria, Eritrea, along with China and many more proud peoples who want their independence, unique ways of life, and to not be occupied by NATO. In fact, these two Canadian compradors for capitalism, along with another commie hater, Ethan Gutman, maintain a hoax website entitled, quote, the International Coalition to End Organ Pillaging in China, end of quote. These guys and their site reek of CIA money and are part of the BLPM. Then there are spin-off groups like the FLG creating the Doctors Against Organ Harvesting. Charles Liu did his usual excellent job of research and showed that his director and every, quote, doctor, end of quote, on the panel were all Falun Gong members. Now, The Guardian and Wall Street Journal are digging up this phony baloney from the BLPM by referring to these aforementioned clowns, while citing the European Parliament's, the EUP, 2016, quote, Written Declaration 0048/2016 on stopping organ harvesting from prisoners of conscience in China, end of quote. As it turns out, only the original 12 members who submitted it were signatories. On July 27, 2016, it lapsed into undignified irrelevance after the 3-month submission period, since it did not get the obligatory 50% of members to sign, so it was never officially published. In other words, it was a defunct, dead letter. This ability to claim, quote, an EU Parliament human rights declaration, end of quote, was so badly abused by the BLPM that in 2017, the EUP abolished Rule 136, which allowed it. So here we are in February 2019, and BLPM mouthpieces, The Guardian and Wall Street, are making it look like this defunct EUP, quote, human rights declaration, end of quote, was a really big deal when the EUP got so sick of the CIA/MI6/DGSE/BND bribing and extorting its members to pump out these propaganda pieces that the whole system was abolished, while citing a bogus, quote, report, end of quote, from the aforementioned CIA, quote, organ pillaging, end of quote, front website. The BLPM is propaganda based on lies built on propaganda. It is a seductive mainstream media 3-card Monty, an evil circle of color revolutions, subversion, and subterfuge that just keeps on spinning death and destruction. Looking at the calendar, it's about time to dig up another classic mainstream hoax to insult the Chinese people, selling canned human meat to Africans. That BLPM whopper got a big buzz around the world a couple of years ago. It's a CIA special. I'm sure hoary, quote, police state chestnuts from Tibet are in the pipeline too. Hong Kong, Taiwan, Macau, the South China Sea, Belt and Road Initiative, state-owned enterprises, ZTE, Huawei, cyber hacking, cashless society, surveillance cameras, AI, big data, facial recognition, social credit score. The hopper of hoaxes from Western hell is full and just waiting for a little spin. It's sad, but like the bogus Muslim concentration camp big lie, it works every time. The problem is 99% of Westerners mistakenly believe they have a, quote, free press, end of quote, barely read beyond the well-orchestrated sensational headlines, swallow it all as gospel truth, post it on their Facebook and Twitter pages, then are, quote, experts, end of quote, at the dinner table and around the water cooler at work. Hey, look at me. I subscribe to The Economist and the New York Times. This while they are equally brainwashed that socialist, communist, anti-imperial media are all, quote, totalitarian, end of quote, and unworthy of consideration. What the BLPM does is ingeniously and diabolically effective, psychological reflection slash deflection of all its planetary psychopathy and tyranny onto its anti-imperial enemies. No wonder they call it Psyops, psychological operations. Unfortunately, humanity, mostly dark-skinned, poor, and Muslim, pays the terrible price of millions of innocents being exterminated every year and the planet being genocidally plundered and environmentally desecrated by global capitalism as a result of Western citizens' delusions of racial, cultural, and political superiority. Read it and weep. This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland, signing out from Shenzhen. Have a wonderful day.